This is Duke University. This week on Office Hours, last year Duke launched an entrepreneurship initiative to expand the societal impact of Duke innovations and better serve students who seek to think big. This initiative is preceded by programs such as the Startup Challenge Competition and the Fuqua School Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. At the helm is Kimberly Jenkins, the university's senior advisor to the president and provost for innovation and entrepreneurship. Jenkins has a business history that includes persuading Bill Gates to launch an education division to leading the marketing department for Steve Jobs at Next. She is joined by Sydney Primus, Duke student and founder of InCube, an entrepreneurship house for Duke students. Jenkins takes your questions on the role of higher education in supporting innovation.
I'm David Jarmel, the head of Duke's Office of News and Communications. Kimberly Jenkins, Sydney Primus, welcome to Office Hours. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David.
We're here to talk about entrepreneurship, and it was just a week ago that we lost one of this country and the world's great entrepreneurs of the past century. Kimberly, you worked with Steve Jobs, and I thought I might start our discussion today by asking what you remember about him and whether there was anything from your time working with him that you've brought here to Duke and to North Carolina.
Well, I was deeply saddened by the death of Steve Jobs. I was really privileged to work with him in the startup of a company called Next. Unfortunately, Next never made any money, but it created all the technology that eventually was rolled back into Apple when Steve went back to Apple and created the iPhone, the iPad, the iPod. And what I learned from Steve was how to be innovative, how to do a startup, both the do's and don'ts. And one of his major tenets that I can bring back to Duke, I think we have a photo that shows this, is that there's a real important intersection between technology and innovation. And at Duke, we have technology and liberal arts, where we have strong liberal arts, and the intersection of that with applied sciences, engineering, medicine, business, public policy is what's really going to enable our faculty, staff, students to have breakthrough solutions to problems.
Now you're back here at Duke. We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about what you're doing with students, with faculty, with alums, as well as in Durham and in the region. And as a way to get into that, and so our viewers can get a feel of it, we're going to start out by showing a brief tape of the Duke Startup Challenge. Maybe we can roll that.
Great.
Next up is Sidewalk.
Sidewalk is real-time, on-demand promotions for small businesses. Local merchants tell us one of their biggest challenges is variability in foot traffic due to time of day of the week, or inclement weather. But it's these down times when customers are the most valuable.
And our solution gives those businesses control. With tools to create time-sensitive offers, they can push directly to your mobile phones via our app in real time. Additionally, with Pandora-like intelligence, we ensure users only get deals they care about. We have...
Well, we'll have Pandora-like intelligence for the whole conversation here today. And in fact, today we've just launched your new website. Maybe we can show that for entrepreneurship.duke.edu, which is available off the Duke homepage. Maybe you can talk a little about what you're going to be doing, what you have been doing here at Duke.
Well, there's been a lot of work in the field of innovation and entrepreneurship across campus. What I'm doing is trying to connect the dots so that we can coordinate, collaborate, communicate better, help students. The new website will help students and faculty and even our alums or investors know what's going on in a very complex organization. So they'll be able to go to the website, find out what courses we're offering, what events are going on, what some of our most prominent alumni are doing. And you mentioned the Duke Startup Challenge there. It showed a little clip. It's worth mentioning. I always say that's one of the most exciting events outside of Cameron Indoor Stadium. The environment there is totally crazy. And the students, we had 110 different student teams that pitched their companies through the course of the year. We had a $50,000 grand prize, a total of about $82,000 in prizes went to students who are the next generation of entrepreneurs.
And it looked like it was a lot of fun, too.
It's a great deal of fun. They have thunder sticks, they have Vava Zooms, and they scream and holler and cheer, and they bring extraordinary ideas, breakthrough ideas.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about some of those. We ask those of you who are watching to, if you have questions for Kimberly or for Sid, to send them. We'll try and ask them here on the air. And we've already received a question. Kimberly, this is for you. It's from Dan by email. Are you focused on student entrepreneurship, or does your charge extend to faculty, deans, and staff?
That's an important question because the answer is yes to all of those. We focus on the full range of entrepreneurship with our faculty, staff, students, and our alumni. Even once a person graduates from Duke, we consider them part of the entrepreneurial community, and we want to help resource all of these people. We've done, most of our work to date has been with faculty around the commercialization of the research, getting the ideas out of their labs and to the marketplace. I can tell you about a couple in particular.
Sure, please do.
One of the more fun events that I had with our president, Dick Broadhead, recently was we went into some of the labs in our engineering school. Kathy Nightingale's lab that you see there with President Broadhead. They showed him, Kathy and her team are the recipients of a major grant from the Coulter Foundation that brings the intersection of medicine and biomedical engineering devices together. So we solve problems. That particular lab is working on how they might detect liver stiffness, liver disease. They offered Dick Broadhead a chance to get up on the table and have his liver scanned. And I have to say, he's a great sport, and he's a big advocate for what we're doing in entrepreneurship across the whole university. Another faculty member that we're working closely with is Philip Benfey. Philip has started a company called Grassroots Bio. He is an internationally renowned scientist in the field of genomics and especially good at helping create new plants that can be used for biofuel and for food.
Right, and they're based here in Durham.
They're both at Duke University. Grassroots Bio is based here in Durham, so it's a Durham-founded company.
Mm-hmm. I thought professors were supposed to teach classes and do research. Are they supposed to be out building businesses? And what's the purpose of that?
We do value that our faculty have so much research that drives innovation, and we want to help them get that innovation into the form that can really be usable to solve the most pressing problems of our time. So it's an important role that we value.
And I'm guessing it's not just at Duke, but at other universities here in North Carolina or indeed around the country that you think should be doing this more effectively.
I not only think it, I think our President Obama thinks it, Governor Perdue thinks it. We are collaborating here regionally. We've gotten over some of our fierce basketball rivalries, and now the University of North Carolina State, and North Carolina Central and Duke are all working together to see if we can't build this region into a hotbed for entrepreneurship.
A reminder that we welcome your questions for Kimberly Jenkins and Sydney Primus here on Office Hours. We'll try and ask them on the air. Sydney, let me ask you a question. You are one of the growing number of student entrepreneurs here at Duke. You were an entrepreneur even when you were back in high school in Los Angeles. Tell us what you were doing then and how you got interested in it.
I mean, it even started before that. I mean, I've wanted to be an entrepreneur for as far back as I can remember. So I was that kid doing the bake sales and the lemonade sales, every weekend with friends. I was that kid who went to the bin candy store and, bought a lot of candy and then went from door to door to sell that candy to neighbors. But in high school, I started an advertisement business. And that's when I really realized that, my future career would be in entrepreneurship.
Tell an advertising business, doing what?
Yeah, I mean, basically what we did is we went to businesses and we told them that we would advertise for them through different methods if they gave us a discount. And so we took that discount from these 20 businesses and we kind of aggregated them and then we distributed them through different methods. So we did booklet, we did discount card, people could get discounts through email and they had to pay for that.
Now you're here at Duke, you're a senior, and you joined with a number of other Duke students to create a place where entrepreneurial students can live together and feed on each other's idea. This is InCube. Mm-hmm. What's that all about?
Yeah, I'm really excited about InCube. So basically the concept behind InCube is that, how do we get together a bunch of awesome people who are really passionate about entrepreneurship and create a culture or almost a cult where people pursue entrepreneurship and pursue startups. And we just started last year, and it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, so tell me about maybe a couple of your housemates.
A couple of my housemates. Yeah, I guess I can give you an example. So Michael, he's actually my roommate. He started a social venture in Liberia called Urban Acres. And they have about 8 hectares of farmland that they have developed and 60 farmers working there. And he actually, after he's graduating, is going to go to Liberia for 2 years and work on this venture. And just turned down McKinsey to pursue this, which is interesting because, I think a lot of people at Duke, when they come here, like there's a culture that pushes you towards consulting. But I think people really want to do entrepreneurship. And so in the past 4 years, like there's been a huge organic transition where people have been talking about entrepreneurship, and that leap of faith to start a company or to do something entrepreneurial has become, much more common.
Yeah, actually, we just got an email question from Jeff who says, you're talking a lot about commercial entrepreneurship at Duke. What's going on with nonprofit entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship?
I'd like to take that question because that's a very important part of what we do. I see entrepreneurship as a continuum, and social entrepreneurship and the creation of social ventures are a big part of what we do well. We have one of the leading institutions called CASE, Center for the Advancement of Social Entrepreneurship, that with Greg Dees, internationally renowned leader in social entrepreneurship, and we're helping the next generation figure out how to do what your roommate is doing, because to keep those social ventures scalable and sustainable over time. We also do it at the undergraduate level.
Right.
And I'm finding that this generation doesn't see the boundaries, or they don't put themselves in the boxes that earlier generations did, in that they go from Morgan Stanley to Teach for America and back and forth.
Right.
So there's a lot of
So it's not
fluidity.
like nonprofit here and big capitalist business over here, but really trying to think about how that blends in different kinds of ways.
I think
Yeah.
it's that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's we're talking about InCube, Sid, but there's also other programs around the university that are encouraging student entrepreneurship, like Duke Student Ventures.
Yeah, I mean, Duke Student, so basically there's, an immense amount of opportunities at Duke, provided to you by the administration and student groups. So what Duke Student Venture actually does is it helps guide students to find out the right opportunity for them, depending on the stage they are in within their business. So other than Duke Student Ventures, I mean, we have TDE, we have the Duke Startup Challenge. So there's just a bunch.
TDE is?
Sorry. TDE is the Duke Entrepreneur, which is basically the student club focused on entrepreneurship here on campus.
Yeah. So as you're sitting around with your friends at night, do they want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, or what? I mean, sort of what's the dream? Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, last night I came back to InCube at 3:30 in the morning. Left Perkins because it was so empty.
Perkins Library.
Yeah. And I walked into the InCube common room, and there were 4 people, coding away on their businesses. And it was just really cool to walk into that room, and probably a mistake to walk into that room because I ended up staying there for about an hour and chatting with different people. So it's a really cool environment, and kind of like the motivation of these entrepreneurs escalates, and like they help each other stay focused on, creating that next big thing.
Yeah. I want to point, and yet you look remarkably awake here on Office Hours with us. So we're talking a moment ago about this intersection of commercial and social entrepreneurship. And I think we have a video of a good example of that, of Rachel Weeks. Maybe Kimberly, can you tell us about her?
Yeah, Rachel Weeks is a young alum. She grew up in North Carolina, in Greensboro. She came to Duke on a scholarship and then got Fulbright that took her to Sri Lanka. When she was in Sri Lanka, she saw the need for companies that would provide a living wage to the workers there. So she also knew that as a college student that there was a big need for getting us out of these big baggy boxy t-shirts. And there's a fashion-forward crowd here that had no solution. So what she did was create a company called Schoolhouse, where she made very fashionable college apparel, and she set up company in Sri Lanka. She has since moved that to North Carolina because she's now meeting a need for the revival of the textile industry here in North Carolina and for jobs for North Carolinians. So hers is also a Durham-based company.
Which has been a big industry here in this state and in other states, which has certainly declined in recent years. So we have a video of Rachel. Maybe we can show that for a moment.
Great.
It's definitely becoming more and more popular, I think, for brands, obviously, to be incorporating more socially responsible initiatives throughout their supply chain. There's lots of different ways, I think, to enact this idea of ethical fashion. We've just really supported the idea of living wage as a start.
We invite your questions to Kimberly and Sydney, and we have one that we've received by email from Stuart, which bears on what we just saw about Rachel Weeks. Stuart says, "It's great to see Duke developing an ecosystem that endorses entrepreneurs. Will this effort also serve to extend the university's global reach?"
I think entrepreneurship is a worldwide agenda right now, innovation and entrepreneurship. Duke has a lot of global partnerships. I've already been in early conversations about how we might leverage what we're doing here. Many of our students want to have internships and jobs around the world, and they want to join startup companies in China and India and South America and Europe just as much as they do here.
Right. Now, Sydney, you actually personally got involved in a venture that does clean water in India and other parts of the developing world.
Yeah. No, actually, each of one of my summers, I've worked with a startup in a different country and in a different continent. So, for me personally, it's definitely about globalization and figuring out, not only how can you leverage your connections and the intelligence of the United States, but also of different countries. And actually, two of my friends, they just took some time off Duke University and moved to Germany to work on their company full-time over there. So definitely there's a global reach to entrepreneurship.
To do what in Germany?
Well, they went there over the summer to work on a startup. And they worked with somebody who incubated a lot of startups. And by the end, they were running their own startup and had funding for it. And so when the semester started, they decided to go back there and work on the startup full-time. And the interesting thing about that, it goes back to the question of mentorship, because while in Germany, they had a really awesome mentor who inspired them to make that leap of faith, because it's not easy and it takes a lot of courage.
Right, and as you said, students who graduate, and you're a senior, who in the past might have gone off to an investment bank or some other more conventional kind of career, are now taking the plunge to become entrepreneurs. Rachel Weeks is an example. And there's a whole network now, at least within Duke, of more than 3,000 alumni who are involved in entrepreneurship in one way or another through Duke Gen. Kimberly, maybe you can tell us about that.
Duke Gen stands for Global Entrepreneurship Network. We do have over 3,500 members now, and we get together in 10 cities around the world. Most of them are US-based, but we have beer and pizza and bring people together to network. And they do what we call collision. They bump into the next software engineer or lawyer or venture capitalist at these events. And in addition to that kind of networking that helps people form their ventures, we have 2 pitch events a year, one in San Francisco and one in New York. We just had the New York event last night.
Just last night.
Where alumni come together and they go through a vetting process, but the winners of that pitch to an audience of venture capitalists and other Duke alumni. And it too is very exciting and helps launch many of these alumni into real ventures.
So we have more than 170 people joining us online right now, and maybe we could put a human face on some of these alums to give them more of a flavor of what's going on. So Kimberly, I'm just going to give you some names, and you're going to tell me what they're doing. So Melissa Bernstein.
Melissa Bernstein is one of our alums. She went to Trinity College, and she is the founder, along with her husband, Doug, of a prominent toy company called Melissa and Doug. Anyone with children under the age of 5 knows that these are the premier toys for children, and she left Morgan Stanley. It's a good example of someone who actually went into investment banking, left after 2 years, much to her parents' surprise, shelved the job security.
I'm guessing surprise is the polite word.
Yeah. they said, "What are you doing, leaving this secure job, hard to get job?" And she said, "I have a passion, I have a creativity." And she and Doug started a company in his garage, so it's one of those stories. And it's now one of the leading toy companies that inspires children to be imaginative and creative in their play.
Carmichael Roberts.
Carmichael is another Duke alum. He got his BS and PhD from Duke in chemistry. He is now a venture capitalist at Northbridge in Boston. He's been to Harvard and MIT in addition to Duke, and a total inspiration in the field of chemistry and materials. He is a member of the task force at Duke, and he goes into many, many of our classrooms and inspires students to do what he's done.
And like Sid had a science background, or in your case, neural engineering, but had this passion for business and has found an interesting way to combine that.
That's right.
Still another example of that is Rusty Williams.
Rusty Williams is someone I know. He and I served on the board of trustees together. He is the founder of a company in San Francisco called 5 Prime Therapeutics. It's a major company in the field of proteins and antibodies that are addressing some of the most prevalent cancers and diseases of our time. Rusty is the chairman of a task force that is helping Duke figure out how we might create this ecosystem for entrepreneurship.
All right, so I've gotten a question by Twitter which says, what does the Triangle need as a whole to be a better entrepreneurial hub, and how can Duke help? So let's take a minute to talk about entrepreneurship, not just here at Duke University, but in Durham and in the Triangle and across North Carolina. Maybe we can start just as an example of Durham by showing Joystick Labs, which is a group that's promoting the gaming industry and gaming startups. Kimberly, what's going on here in Durham? And then we'll talk about the region.
Well, the two greatest needs in this area are for some early stage funding that's so critical to get companies started, and for something that Sid mentioned earlier, mentorship. We need people who have been around the block a few times and can help our best entrepreneurs figure out how to build a company that can be cooked long enough and get in front of serious venture capitalists. So Joystick Labs is focused on one of the areas of strength that we have in this area, which is the gaming industry. And they do that cooking process. They incubate startup companies so that they help them get access to some of the senior talent and coaching they need to know how to really make those companies happen.
I'm trying to picture this. So if I'm a geeky inclined person who likes gaming and I'm good at coding and I kind of have this idea that I want to start a business creating the next super great video game, what is it that I need to learn how to do, or what is it I don't know?
Well, if you're that kind of person, you probably need a team. It takes people who have some marketing savvy, and you'll probably need a lawyer who knows how to navigate the patent process and filing for your company. You'll need startup money, so you'll need a good business plan so you know how to communicate where your business is, where it's going. So an incubator helps bring all those pieces together and really holds the hand of somebody who has a fabulous idea but needs to go through the process of how to make it into a real business.
But it's hard to live in Durham and not have a sense that there's something interesting going on with this whole entrepreneurship thing. Now, you spent many years in Silicon Valley, and this region has a long way to go to reach that level.
Right.
You would agree with that?
I would agree with that.
But there's also a sort of a buzz in the air. What's your sense of how this city is doing?
I think that's the biggest buzz going in this area, and its home base really is Durham, although the whole Triangle is all about this. The universities fuel a lot of this. A lot of our graduates and our faculty start up their businesses right here in Durham.
Yeah.
And
you told me that when you go back to California, that people say they
ask me, are there any jobs? Because this is such a great place to live. The lifestyle here is extraordinary. The education's great. The cost of living is lower for businesses looking at any energy costs. That's really affordable. We have good tax structure. So people want to come here.
Right. And beyond Durham, just more in the region, there have been some very interesting developments in the last couple of months. Maybe you can talk about the Blackstone program.
Indeed, one of the largest private equity firms, Blackstone, took a look at what's going on in the Research Triangle Park, and they decided to give us some funds to build out that mentorship network that Sid and I have been saying is so critical, to help us find the most talented serial entrepreneurs and bring them directly into the hallways of our institutions and help us pull out the most innovative companies and teach them how to build.
So just to help our viewers understand this, so you personally worked with Steve Jobs and with Bill Gates and have had a pretty impressive entrepreneurial career yourself. Here you have Sid, who's a bright and accomplished, but nonetheless still a college undergraduate. What is it he needs to know that he doesn't know, or even more, maybe someone who has not been as involved in this as Sid is, the bright person with the great idea? What is it that you want them to know?
Well, first let me say that it's a rare person that is a Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs that gets out at the age of 21 or 22 and starts a company. It really helps to know the whole business process is actually very complex. It's a highly competitive marketplace right now. That marketplace is global, and it takes a real team. A lot of people think of entrepreneurship as an individual in a garage, and there are those stories, but it's a team sport. And so what a lot of young entrepreneurs need is some gray hairs, thank goodness, that can help them figure out how to put together a robust business that can get the funding and live through the
And that's what this Blackstone network is going to do. And I think we have a brief video that can help explain that to our viewers.
Great.
Today's announcement by the Blackstone Group is going to really amplify the energy that we already have. It's so important. We can't tell you how important it is for our state.
This unprecedented collaboration of academic, public, and private sector leaders makes a very serious statement about the commitment of North Carolina. What we're going to be doing is creating 15 master entrepreneurs or mentors to help translate ideas into new companies and new reality.
We have universities right here that are doing important work. There are other parts of the country, other research centers that are doing better at getting ideas from the laboratory to the marketplace, and that's what this program will do, is help those scientists see how to take their idea and turn it into a business.
We welcome your questions for Kimberly and Sid, and we've received one on Twitter, which follows up the video that we just saw. It's from Don Wilson 10, who asks, how does the entrepreneurship program foster connections to industry?
Well, a couple things. At the individual level, one of the clarifications I wanted to make is that we're focused not just on creating the next generation of entrepreneurs that will start new ventures, but we're working on educating our students to develop a creative skill set and to be innovative in any application. So not everyone will go out and start their own company or social venture. Not everyone will even go into a startup company with a team, but they will bring that sense of innovation into any endeavor that they do, be it a classroom teacher or a Fortune 500 company as well. So part of what we're doing here is focusing on the broad skill set.
And are people ready to do that? We've gotten still another question, which is saying, are scientists more comfortable these days about taking the risk of starting a new business? And I suppose we could expand that beyond scientists to just folks in general.
I feel that they're a lot more comfortable. They're encouraged. What I would like to see us do at Duke is to resource them, help them, and then when they're really successful, celebrate them. We need to recognize these people and celebrate them. We do have a fair amount of this going on already across many different disciplines at Duke. And we need to put a spotlight on how great they are.
We have more than 700 people joining us online, not just at Duke, but probably around the country and around the world. So if someone's not at Duke and they want to start their own business. What's your advice for them?
Come to Duke. We have a network of alumni, as we've discussed, that from all over the place, and our tentacles are across the U.S., around the world, and we have all kinds of educational outreach programs that would be open to anybody who wants to start this.
Sid, how about from your perspective as someone, a younger person who's been in the middle of it, what would be your advice to people who are watching?
About entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Well, from a student's perspective, I think the hardest part is getting started. So I think once you've started, you're so excited about what you're doing that things start happening themselves. But making that initial leap of faith is something very difficult.
What's the mistake you see your friends making beyond staying up to 3 in the morning to be coding instead of going to sleep?
Mistake? Well, I don't know if it's a mistake not to do entrepreneurship. I think there's a lot of valuable skill sets to be learned as an entrepreneur, and afterwards you can do anything you want to do. So what I think entrepreneurship or the entrepreneurial skill set really helps you to do is have an impact. And I think that Duke understands that more than most schools out there. That education isn't really about knowledge, right? It's about, how do you develop the individual so that he can have the biggest impact once he graduates. And that,
right.
Yeah.
Which gets us back to the photo of Steve Jobs, where we started this conversation, which is it's not just the technical skills, but what he was calling liberal arts, but a broader engagement with the world. Let me ask a final question, which is many people who are watching, they're not going to become entrepreneurs, but they still live in a country where the economy is pretty shaky. And we're embarking on another presidential campaign where there's already discussion in the air about how do we get our economy, how do we get our society back on track. How important do you think entrepreneurship is to that whole conversation and to our future as a country?
I think it's essential, it's critical, it's all important. Most of the net new jobs that have been created since 1980 have come from startup companies, and they are driving the economy. So that's why we see much of our public policy and our politicians focused on jobs and on actually driving that entrepreneurial foundation for the creation of jobs.
Sid, how about you as you look ahead, not just to your own future and what's going to be good for you, but as someone who's going to be a citizen of the world for decades to come, hopefully, how do you see entrepreneurship fitting into that?
Well, I agree with Kimberly. I think it's absolutely essential, especially for the United States, where we don't have cheap labor anymore. So it's really about innovation and how do you create the next big thing and create jobs through that.
It's so interesting what you're doing, and I hope people watching have seen just how important it is to this university, but really more broadly to the region, and as we were just talking about, more widely. So Kimberly Jenkins, Sid Primus, thank you so much for joining us here on Office Hours today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
A recording of this Office Hours conversation will be available with many other Duke videos soon on Duke On Demand. That's ondemand.duke.edu. Thanks for watching.